I was sitting at my kitchen table last January, staring at my laptop screen. I just set up 5 different places to invest my money. Yes, 5. And I was about to do something kind of crazy. I was going to put $1,000 into each of these special funds that everyone keeps talking about on YouTube and TikTok. The ones that promise to pay you cash every single week, like getting a second paycheck deposited into your bank account. And I told myself, I'm leaving this money alone for an entire year, no matter what. No pulling it out when I get scared, no adding more when I get excited. Just let it sit there and watch what happens. One of them did really, really well. 2 of them, not so much. And what I learned is probably the opposite of what you've been told. My name is Richard, and I teach what schools should have taught us about money. Make sure you smash that like button and hit subscribe if this video helps you think about money differently. Now, before I show you what happened, I remember talking to my neighbor a few months into doing this. He's retired. He lives off his Social Security check and a small pension from his old job. And he asked me, Richard, should I put my retirement savings into one of those funds that pay every week? I need that money coming in weekly to cover my bills. And I completely froze. Because at that point, I'd been watching what was happening to my money every single week. And I realized most regular people buying these have no clue what they're really buying. They hear weekly dividend and think it's like getting a permanent raise at your job where your boss pays you more every week. But it's nothing like that. And if you don't understand how it actually works, you could lose your hard-earned money while thinking you're doing great. But here's where things get interesting. Let me tell you exactly what I did. Because if you're thinking about putting your money into these funds that pay weekly, you need to see what a full year really looks like. Not just the exciting I made $500 this week posts people share on social media. I'm talking about everything. The good weeks where I made money, the bad weeks where I lost money, the weeks where I lay awake at night wondering if I'd made a terrible decision. Here's why seeing the full picture matters. Most people who buy these weekly paying funds give up and quit within 6 months. They see cash deposits hitting their bank account every single week. They feel like they're getting rich, then one day they actually check their total account balance and see it's dropped 15% in just 3 weeks, and they freak out. They panic, sell everything, and lock in their loss permanently. So let me show you exactly what I tracked for a full year. I chose 5 different funds in 2025, PLTW, which goes up and down based on Palantir stock, NVDW, which goes up and down based on NVIDIA stock, WHO, which goes up and down based on Robinhood stock, AMDW, which goes up and down based on AMD stock, and WEEK, which is tied to super safe US government bonds. I put $1,000 into each one. That's $5,000 total of my own money. And I tracked 3 specific things. First, weekly cash received. That's the actual dollars that showed up in my bank account each week. Second, total return. That's whether my total investment went up or down when you count everything together. Third, return of capital. That's how much of the weekly cash I received was actually just my own original $1,000 being returned to me slowly, not actual new money I earned. I didn't sell anything for 12 full months, even when things got really scary and ugly. Why did I pick these 5 specific funds? Because they represent the 2 main types of weekly paying investments regular people can buy. Type 1, the risky ones connected to a single company's stock. That's PLTW, NVDW, WHO, and AMDW. Here's how they work. They're designed to exaggerate whatever the stock does. So if Palantir stock goes up 5% in a week, PLTW is designed to go up 6%. Sounds great, right? But here's the scary part. If Palantir stock goes down 5% in a week, PLTW goes down 6%, it magnifies everything in both directions. Type 2, the safe, boring one. That's weak. This one doesn't buy any company stocks at all. It simply lends money to the US government through bonds and then pays you the interest every week. That's it. I wanted to answer this question. Do the risky ones that promise big payments actually make you more money in the end? Or is the boring, safe option actually better for regular working people? Let me tell you what actually happened in my first week. Week 1, here's the cash that hit my bank account. PLTW paid me $14.50. NVDW paid me $12.80. HOODAI paid me $15.20. AMDW paid me $11.40. And WEEK paid me $3.20. I remember looking at my phone and watching all these separate deposits show up in my bank account every single week. And I honestly thought, this is incredible. Why isn't everyone doing this? But then by week 8, here's what changed. PLTW paid me $11.20. NVDW paid me $10.50. Who paid me $13.80. AMDW paid me $9.70. And Week paid me $3.15. Wait, hold on. The weekly payments are getting smaller? Yeah, they go up and down. They change every single week based on what's happening in the stock market. They're not stable and guaranteed like the paycheck you get from your actual job. And that's the very first thing most people don't understand when they buy these. Here's how to think about these weekly paying funds in simple terms. Rule number 1. Weekly dividend is just a clever marketing phrase. Here's the difference. When you own Coca-Cola stock, the company sells soda, makes profit, and 4 times a year they give you a small piece of that profit. That's a real true dividend from actual business profits. These weekly paying funds, they use complicated financial tricks and trading strategies to create those weekly payments. And sometimes they're literally just taking your original $1,000, breaking off little pieces, and handing it back to you while calling it a payment. That's not you earning money. That's you getting your own money back slowly. Rule number 2, getting big weekly payments does not mean it's safe. Actually, it's the opposite. The funds that pay you the most money each week are almost always the riskiest, most dangerous ones. Rule number 3, stop only looking at the weekly cash hitting your account. Look at your total account value. You can collect $50 in cash every single week and feel like you're winning. But if your total account balance keeps shrinking and dropping, you're actually losing money overall. Let me tell you about my worst week during this whole experiment. It was mid-June 2025. One of my funds completely crashed. The company's stock it was connected to dropped 18% in just 3 weeks. And remember, because this fund was designed to exaggerate and move faster than the stock, it dropped even harder. My original $1,000 investment? Suddenly it was only worth $820. I lost $180 in just 3 weeks. That's real money gone. I got an email from another person who'd bought the same fund back in March. The subject line said, "Should I sell?" I'm down 20%. And I honestly didn't know what to tell him. Because in that exact moment, I was sitting there asking myself the exact same question. I remember sitting at my desk, just staring at my investment account on my phone. My brain was absolutely screaming at me, "You're losing money! This was such a stupid idea. Just sell everything right now and stop the bleeding." But then I remembered something my dad told me when I was just a kid. He used to say, so I made a decision. I didn't sell. I closed the app on my phone so I couldn't see it anymore. I literally went outside and took a walk to clear my head. And I told myself out loud, "You promised yourself you'd do this for a full year no matter what. Keep that promise. Finish the year." Here's what happened to the guy who emailed me asking if he should sell. He panicked. He sold everything. Mid-June, right at the bottom. He turned what was just a temporary loss on his screen into a permanent, real loss in his bank account. But here's the crazy part. By December, just 6 months later, that same fund had completely recovered and was way up from where he originally bought it. If he'd just been patient and held on without panicking, he would have turned his original $5,000 into over $7,800. That's a $2,800 profit. Instead, he walked away with only $4,000. He actually lost $1,000 of his own money because he panicked and sold at the absolute worst possible moment. And that fund he sold, it ended up being my number 1 pick out of all 5. The big winner of the whole experiment. But I'm not telling you which one it is yet. You need to keep watching. But before I reveal which fund was the big winner, I need to show you the disappointing ones first. Because understanding what doesn't work and what fails is just as important as knowing what does work and succeeds. Here's the hard truth that nobody wants to hear. You can get cash deposited into your bank account every single week and still end up with less money than you started with. You can watch $50 show up in your account 52 times a year, collect $2,600 in total deposits, and still be broker than when you began. How is that possible? Because if your total investment account balance is shrinking and dropping in value while you're collecting those weekly payments, you're not actually getting richer. You're just watching your own money move from one place to another. Let me show you two funds that prove this point perfectly: NVDW, the NVIDIA Fund, and AMDW, the AMD Fund. At the end of 2025, if you'd invested in either one, your money would have grown by about 34%. Now, making 34% in 1 year sounds pretty fantastic, right? It is. That's actually really good. But here's the problem nobody talks about. If you just bought regular, normal NVIDIA stock directly instead of buying this special fund, you would have made 38% that same year. That means you would have made more money by doing it the simple, boring way, and you wouldn't have paid any extra fees to a fund company. Why did these funds make less money than just buying the stock normally? Three simple reasons. Reason number one, fees. These funds charge you about 1% of all your money every single year just for running the fund and managing it. That might sound tiny, but it adds up and eats into your profits. Reason number two, the way they create those weekly payments puts a cap on your profits. They do complicated behind the scenes trades to generate that weekly cash for you, but those same trades limit how much you can make when the stock price really shoots up. Reason number three, return of capital. This is the big one. A lot of the money they're paying you each week isn't actually fresh, new money that you earned as profit. It's literally your own original money that you invested, and they're just slowly breaking it into pieces and handing it back to you week by week and calling it a payment. Let me tell you a real story about my friend Sarah to show you exactly how this works. She bought NVDW back in March 2025, and she absolutely loved watching those weekly cash deposits hit her bank account. Some weeks she'd get $18, other weeks she'd get $22. It felt amazing. She felt like she was crushing it. By December, when she finally sat down to look at her total account balance, it was basically the exact same amount as when she started. Here's what happened. Over the entire year, she'd collected about $1,100 in total weekly payments on her original $5,000 investment. That sounds great, right? But when she looked at what her shares were actually worth, they were only worth $4,950. So she got $1,100 in weekly cash, but her investment went down by $50. She basically just got her own $5,000 back in a confusing way. $1,100 came as weekly payments, and $4,950 was still sitting in the account. That's about $6,050 total. She made $50. Meanwhile, her cousin did it the boring, simple way. He bought regular NVIDIA stock directly. Same exact $5,000 starting investment. By December, his shares were worth $6,900. No weekly payments, no excitement, but he made $1,900 in actual profit. He made almost double what Sarah made just by keeping it simple and boring. All right, so we've covered the disappointing ones that didn't live up to the hype. Now it's finally time for what you've been patiently waiting for, the big winner. Okay, deep breath. The big winner was PLTW, the Palantir Weekly Pay Fund. It made a 56.63% profit in 2025. Let me explain what that actually means in real money. If you put in $1,000 when it first started and you took every single weekly payment that hit your account and immediately used it to buy more shares, you'd have $1,566 sitting in your account by the end of the year. You turned $1,000 into $1,566. You made $566 in profit. That's a 56% gain. But here's the big twist nobody talks about. It was also the scariest, most stressful, most nerve-wracking one to own during the year. Look, I need you to really understand something important here. PLTW made me the most money out of all 5 funds, but it also made me lose the most sleep at night. It kept me up worrying. There were weeks where I'd check my account and I was up 12%. I felt like a genius. There were other weeks where I'd check and I was down 15%. I felt like an idiot. If you can't emotionally handle watching your money bounce up and down like a yo-yo without freaking out, you will panic when it drops and sell everything at exactly the wrong time. PLTW. Here's exactly what happened over the full year of 2025. I started with $1,000 in February. By December, I had $1,566. That's a 56.63% profit. Sounds amazing, right? But the worst week? My account dropped 12.4% in just 1 week in mid June. That means I watched $124 disappear in 7 days. There were 8 different weeks throughout the year where my account dropped more than 5% in a single week. That's 8 weeks of fear and stress. Now compare that to week, the safe, boring one. I started with $1,000 in March. By December, I had about $1,052. That's only a 5.2% profit. I made $52. Not exciting at all? But the worst week, my account dropped 0.1%. That's 1/10 of 1%. I literally barely even noticed it happened. See the massive difference? PLTW made me 10 times more money in actual dollars. But week let me sleep peacefully at night without any stress or worry. Why did PLTW make so much money? 3 simple reasons that are easy to understand. Reason number 1, Palantir stock itself had an absolutely incredible year. The actual Palantir company's stock went up about 47% in 2025. So if the company does well, the fund does well too. Reason number 2, PLTW uses something called leverage. Think of leverage like a magnifying glass for the stock's movements. This fund is specifically designed to move faster and bigger than Palantir stock moves. So if Palantir stock goes up 5% in 1 week, PLTW is designed to go up 6%. Sounds awesome, right? But here's the scary catch. If Palantir stock drops 5% in 1 week, PLTW drops 6%. It magnifies everything in both directions. The ups are bigger, the downs are bigger. Reason number 3, the weekly payments kept me emotionally invested and committed. Every week I got cash, which reminded me why I was doing this and kept me from quitting. Let me walk you through what my actual year looked like month by month. February 2025, it was launch day. I bought in with my $1,000. I was so excited. Week 1, I got paid $14.50 per share. I immediately texted my friend, "Dude, this is insane. I'm already getting paid." June 2025. This is when things got really scary. Palantir stock completely tanked. It dropped 18% in just 3 weeks. My original $1,000 investment, now it was only worth $820. I'd lost $180 in less than a month. I started getting panicked emails from other people who'd bought the same fund. "Richard, should I sell? What do I do?" And honestly, I had no idea what to tell them because I was scared too. This is the exact moment where most normal people give up and quit. September 2025. Things finally started to turn around and recover. Palantir stock started climbing back up. My account slowly climbed back up to $1,100. I was back in profit territory. Barely. December 2025. Palantir had a really strong finish to the year. My account finally hit $1,566. I actually made it through the entire year without selling. I stuck to my plan. But let me tell you, those middle months from June to September, absolutely brutal. I questioned myself every single day. Here's the part that completely blew my mind and changed how I think about this. The reason PLTW made so much money had nothing to do with it paying me every week. The real reason was because Palantir stock itself had an amazing year, and PLTW was designed to magnify and amplify those gains using leverage. The weekly payments? That was just clever marketing to get people excited and interested. Here's the scary truth. If Palantir stock had crashed and gone down instead of up, PLTW would have crashed even harder and faster. Getting paid weekly doesn't protect you from losing money. It just makes the losses feel a little less painful in the moment because you're still seeing some cash hit your account. Why is week completely different from all the others? Because it's not connected to any company stocks at all. Zero stocks. Instead, it holds something called short-term US Treasury bills. These are basically short-term loans to the US government. They're literally the safest investment in the entire world because they're backed by the full power of the US government. And week takes the interest the government pays on those loans and gives it to you every single week. That's it. No leverage, no complicated trading tricks, No magnifying good or bad days, just simple, straightforward interest from super safe government bonds deposited into your account weekly. Remember my neighbor I mentioned at the beginning? The retired guy living on Social Security? After I finished this whole year long experiment, I sat down with him at his kitchen table and said, if you genuinely need money coming into your bank account every single week to pay your bills and buy groceries, and you can't afford to watch your account drop 15% in a few weeks without having a panic attack or heart attack, there's only one fund I'd feel comfortable recommending to you. The Round Hill Weekly T-Bill Fund.